Welcome to Conversations with Cubit. This is going to be an amazing night, I can tell you right now. This is going to be as big a treat for you as it is for me right now. I promise. Thank you for joining me tonight. And if you are with me on a regular basis, you can already tell that we are not in the studio. And as amazing as this place is, it's not one of Green Pasture Studios' elaborate set designs. I'm actually in the beautiful home of none other than the Mo Anderson. But we'll talk a lot more about that in just a few minutes. Let me start by saying thanks for the support of these weekly conversations. Last week, we were with Pastor Scobie, and that was off the charts. Pastor Scobie, if you're watching, you got to step your game up, bro. Look at this house. And if you miss that conversation, do yourself a huge favor and go back and watch that one. It's a really good conversation. And if you're new to these weekly conversations, welcome to the family. My team and I are so excited that you found your way here. Please continue to send me those inbox messages, the DMs, the emails. You don't know how encouraging they are for us to read those. Also, hit the like button, hit the share button. It really helps us spread these conversations across our community, and you know people need to be inspired right now. Also, continue to comment during and after the broadcast. Your feedback is extremely important. Now, don't keep these conversations yourself. Again, you may not finish the conversation, so hit the share button right now. Do it now. I'm waiting. As always, I have to give a special shout out to Richard and Amy James for giving these weekly conversations a home in Green Pasture Studios out in Spencer, Oklahoma. Do whatever you need to do to learn more about the work that's being done out in Green Pasture Studios. Trust me on this one. It's all good. You will not be disappointed. But before we dive into tonight's conversation, let me tell you my 3 very simple goals for these weekly conversations. There's only 3. 1, add value to people in my community. That's one of the only goals. And I want to inspire you to do the same. 2, I want to inspire you to believe in what people and communities can become if we're all willing to work together. And 3, last but not least, just love people, period. Love people, period. No strings attached. All this means is that I want you to be inspired. I want you to get useful information and resources, and I want to celebrate individuals, groups, and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. Every conversation here on Conversations with Cubit will be about information, inspiration, and hope. Now, I am going to do my best to introduce to you a young lady who really needs no introduction to many people across the world. She is certainly well known here in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, in 2018, she was inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. That same year, this inspiring young lady was deemed one of America's top 25 influential thought leaders by Realtor Magazine and one of real estate's most influential people. Ladies and gentlemen, this marvelous young lady I'm speaking of is my friend and my sister, Mo Anderson. Mo was born in a small rural town near Ames, Oklahoma, and she later moved to Wacomas with her parents, who were tenant farmers. Now, Mo never lived in the town of Wacomas. She grew up on a sharecropper's farm. Hard-working family, hard-working woman. And she was the first in her family to graduate college, and in 1995 became the CEO and co-owner of Keller Williams Realty International. The company is now #1 real estate franchise in the world. It is #1 in size, volume, and units. And I could spend a few hours telling you all about Mo's business accomplishments and recognitions. But what I believe will be her legacy is her heart for giving to her local community, supporting charitable organizations and ministries around the world. And although, as a businesswoman, her goal is to make a profit, but she believes her purpose is to give, care, and share. And I can tell you from a personal experience, and maybe it'll come out in our conversation, that Mo lives out that purpose in very intentional ways. I find her extremely inspiring, and I know you will as well. So please help me welcome my sister, Mrs. Mo Anderson, to the conversation.
Hello, Waylon. That's so exciting. Thank you.
You've been introduced by some of the best. I tried to make it different. Was it different?
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Because you're my brother.
Right. Okay.
And I love it that you call me young, and I'm 84.
84 years young.
Yes.
See, that's inspiring right now. And you just get around and run, and you just keep working, and you keep so inspiring. But I got to tell you, how we became brother and sister. I got to tell them how we became brother and sister.
Okay.
Because I don't know, maybe you'll remember the details. So Mo and I were joined a SALT, which is a Christian leadership group that we do for a year, every month for basically a year, 9 or 10 months. And on the very first day, we don't know each other. We don't know any of the other people that are there that's going to be in the class, and we're there with our spouses. So it's 50 or 60 people in
Right.
big one room, and we're stand up and we introduce ourselves and tell them a little bit about ourselves, and the next person stands up. And I must have been early in an introduction. I don't know what it was, but I don't even remember what I said. But I made my introduction and I sat back down. And some 15 people later, Mo stands up for her time to introduce herself, and she says, "Hi, I'm Mo Anderson, and that's my brother way up there." So she claimed me before she knew me. Do you hear? She claimed me before she knew me, and so she got to keep me now. I'm adopted. I'm adopted.
You are.
That's it. So Mo, this is fabulous. This is probably my 4th or 5th time coming out to visit you out here, but this has got to be way different than the farm back near Waukomis.
Oh my!
Tell me, give me a little bit of that
And the other
journey.
farms we
And the other
lived
farms.
on. Well, as a young child, I began to dream about having a home that would keep the rain out, the snow out, the snakes out, and the mice and rats and other varmints. And at 8 years old, I had a house pictured in my head.
Really?
And it was probably 1,000 square feet, but it was really tight, and it was really built in my head so that these animals couldn't come in. And as I grew older, the house in my head became a little bit bigger, a little bit larger, because remember, I grew up in poverty. And then when the Lord started blessing us in our late 60s and our 70s, the house got pretty big in my head. And the yard got bigger.
Yeah.
And here we are. And every day I wake up and I say, Lord, I can't believe you're allowing me to live in something so beautiful. I mean, it didn't have to be this beautiful. So will I still get a mansion?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you still get it.
Or is this it?
Well, we know as believers, we know this is really a shack compared
This
to.
is really a shack compared, but to me, it's the prettiest thing in the world.
This is something to behold. I'm telling you, there's and when we first came here the very first time. Well, let me back up. Let me back up. I don't want to give it away about my first time here, but you invited the entire class out here one time, and I haven't ever told you this, but I had no intentions of coming. I
Really?
didn't. I had no intention of coming. I said, I don't want to party with those people. I party different. I party hardy. That's what I think of. And those people ain't going to party like me and all that kind of stuff. But then, Mo, you captivated me. You tricked me. Or I don't know what you were doing. So I want you to tell I started getting these the mail, and a box of books is what I remember getting. One is what was your book too, but these box of books and good reading, and the next month cookies or something else. Every month something came to remind me of the date that we were having the party.
Right.
Right. Tell me the brains behind. Where did that come from?
Well, I decided that anytime I had a large event like that, I would send some little something each month for 6 months before the function. And this way it would remind the person, and I would send something provocative which would make them want to come. And so it would be, I can't even remember what I sent you all, but it was really interesting because we had almost 100% attendance.
Yes.
And the 2 that weren't here were out of town. So you see, you do it to make provocative statements. And if you didn't have the money to send gifts,
That's my next question. What do we do?
well, then what you do is you take a little note and you write a provocative statement. For example, you will never have fun like you'll have when you come to the party. Or another one could be, we have a big surprise for you at the party. And remember, it was Kyle Dillingham.
Yes, yes, yes.
So see, you can just do it in writing notes. You know, can't wait to see you.
Right.
And that puts curiosity in the heart and mind of the person receiving the gift or the note, and
Right.
they come.
Well,
It works every time.
It worked and because we thought some of the other class members were like, okay, I'm intrigued, so that worked. But at some point the gifts got so personal that we could tell you were thinking about us
As an individual.
as an individual. Yeah. And why was that so important?
Well, because I loved my class. You were the first one that I fell in love with.
Did y'all hear that? Which camera? I was number one.
Because I learned you were a policeman. I learned about different things that you do in your community. I have witnessed how you break down barriers between races, and I love that.
Yeah.
And so I liked you the night we had dinner at the Greens. That's
Yes.
when I thought, he's my guy.
And that was right. And so we had a marvelous time the entire year, and we really just kind of reflected on how we use our individual platforms and how to display Jesus in our workplace. That's it. And so we walked down that path together, and you really became one of the class leaders in that. Little did I know that Keller Williams was. I mean, I remember seeing the signs. I'm not into the business thing,
Right.
But it really starts waking up to all that Keller Williams was and all that you contributed to making it what it is today.
Most people just think it's in their town.
Right.
And they have no idea we have 180,000 agents in 45 countries.
Woo. Woo. Where was it when you started? What was it like when you started?
When I became CEO, we had 1,800 agents and we had 45 market centers. I closed 15 of them, foreclosed on 5 of our regions, and when I was worn out and tired, we had 50,000 agents and 500 offices, so I replaced myself when I hit my goal of 500 offices and 50,000 people,
Right.
50,000 agents.
Now, the other thing that I'd like to say, I want to ask you, because right now with our kids in the program that we mentor, we were telling them, you got to make lists, you got to write things down. And so when you had a goal like that, I guarantee you, I don't know for sure, but I guarantee you it was tucked away or written somewhere as a target. Talk to us about how to set goals and reach goals.
Well, I call something that I use for goal setting a 1-3-5. What is my big goal?
Okay.
And what are the 3 things that I need to do to accomplish the goal? And then underneath each of those 3 things, I put 5 ways I'll accomplish it. So I call
1,
it
3,
our
5.
1-3-5.
And is this something you share throughout as part of the culture, or is this
Yes.
part of the train?
Everybody, we've renamed it. It originally was 1-3-5. Now we call it, I like the name, GPS. Our GPS.
Okay, right. That makes so much sense because it tells you where we're going.
Goal setting is absolutely essential, and knowing what you have to do to achieve it, and then breaking down each of those 3 ways to achieve it.
Do you always apply like a
into
time?
what you have to do. In some cases, yes, a
By a certain date,
timeline,
yeah, a timeline.
is very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Now-
You see, when I was a child, and I just want all the kids in your community to know this and understand it. dreaming is so important. And sometimes you feel so beaten up and you feel so challenged you can't even dream.
Right.
But you'll get over it because God gave us the ability to dream. And one of the dreams I had as a child was that I wanted to make more money than I needed. Because as a kid, I could never give my parents a Christmas present. I never ever gave a gift to anyone because we didn't have the money. And I thought how exciting it would be if I could earn more money than I absolutely needed. You know, because I had to buy my own school clothes, work and buy my own school clothes and all of that kind of thing. And I never seemed to have money left over. So making more than I needed became a big dream in my head, just like a house became a big dream.
So that's the key to one of the things that when you ask around, like, what do you think of Mo? What do you think of Mo? And they go, she's great. And then I go, all right, but why is she great? Is it because she's rich? Is that why she's great?
Well, I'm not really rich. I'm blessed.
I like the term. But where I come from, we call you rich.
Okay.
Richly
Okay.
and blessed too. You're blessed, but blessed ain't got nothing to do with your wallet. Right?
That's right.
Right. So anyway, but what they always come back to, Mo, is that she's one of the most generous people you will ever meet, and I know that to be true. And so what you just said is I've always wanted to make enough money to give. How do you, if that was something that you grew up thinking like that, how do we turn somebody that didn't grow up thinking like that? Like, how do we turn them into generous people?
Well, first, they've got to be able to meet their daily needs. And so that means you teach them to budget so that they know exactly what part of their salary or their income they're going to use for food, shelter, a car payment, etc., etc. And then you teach them to learn to live on 70% of what they bring home. Now let me give you an example. We didn't have any money when our kids grew up, but we did when we had grandchildren.
Okay.
And so when the 3 grandchildren were real little and we gave them $1, we set up 3 piggy banks. The first one we labeled tithe. The second one was savings, and the third one was investment.
Okay.
And so out of every $1, they put 10 cents in the tithe, 10 cents in the savings, and 10 cents in the investment. And so we said, when your little piggy banks are full, then we want you to sit down and have a conversation with mom and dad and figure out where you're going to give your tithe. Now, if you'll do that when they're real little and they understand what tithing means, it means you're giving it back to the Lord. And we encouraged them to give to their church. And then if they wanted to give more than that, that would just be a larger tithe.
Right.
And then when their little savings piggy bank was full, then Papa and Grammy would take them to the bank and open a savings account. And one of our grandsons was really smart, and he, like a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, he struck a deal with his dad that every penny he put in the bank would his dad match it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that was a bad decision on the part of the dad
Sure, I
because he
would.
was pretty thrifty with money.
Uh-huh.
And then when the investment piggy bank is full, you bring it to Papa and Richard, my husband, and then he'll have a discussion with you about stocks and bonds, and then you'll decide where to put it. Well, they all 3 decided they wanted to buy Disney stock.
Of course.
So to this day, one's now a doctor and one works for a wealth management company and the other one is a senior in at OU majoring in finance, and they all still have their Disney stock.
Of course they do. Now, Mo, you gave all of our class, and not only did you give them all our class, but you gave all of the adult members of my family, a copy of A Joy-Filled Life.
Yes.
And so I read it a long time ago, and I know several family members have read it, and I was surprised. I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised that this book matched in chapter this huge medallion or piece of art you have in your foyer when you first walk in the house here.
Yes.
It had your 10 top 10, or I forgot what it's called.
The 20 lessons.
20 lessons, yes.
In the book,
20
and
lessons
then
in the
it
book.
names the title.
Right, it names the title. So one of the things that, and I don't want to give you guys the book. I want you to read the book. You've got to read it from cover to cover.
I'll give the guys the book tonight.
Okay, all right. See that? Y'all blessed. You're blessed. See, not rich. You're blessed. Right. So, so what I'm saying is, in the book, I learned that real estate was not the thing that you chose for yourself.
No. My dream, as I would walk down the pasture lane every evening at the age of 6 to bring in the livestock, my dream was to become a public school music teacher, because I had a music teacher that just deeply inspired me. I didn't know enough about real estate to even think about it, because we never did own what we lived in or the farm that we lived on. So
Right.
see, that didn't even register.
Right. And so in the book, you describe moving, going to school, teaching. You actually taught for a little bit.
I was a public school music teacher, and the beautiful thing about that is I could not major in music at OU. I went to Oklahoma College for Women my first year. That college doesn't exist anymore, and it was just wonderful, but I decided to move to OU because I felt a degree from OU might have enough clout that it would help me achieve something or get into a certain school system. And to be able to major in music there, I needed a piano. I didn't have one, couldn't get anybody to give me one, because I worked to pay my tuition and books and room and board, and they closed the practice rooms at 10 o'clock. And I didn't get off work until about 9:30 or 9:45, so there you go. And I gave up my dream, and it was so painful, and said, well, I'm going to major in elementary education. And my first interview was in Midwest City at Traub Elementary School. I don't think it exists.
I think so. I think it does.
Does it
I
still
think so.
exist?
I think so.
And it was with Lester Goldsboro, who was the principal of the school. At the end of the interview, he looked at me and he said, Mo, would you consider teaching music at our school? I nearly fainted and fell out of the chair, but what I learned from that experience is when God puts a dream in your DNA, I'm here to tell you it will come true in spite of your circumstances.
Right. Oh my goodness. Y'all see why I love being around her? It will come true. I don't care what your circumstances are. A dream is a dream that's placed in your heart.
But if you bury it and you won't think about it and you won't talk about it, it might not come true.
You're right.
But let me tell you what, I talked about it to everybody, how I wanted to
You
be.
talked about it in that interview too, didn't you?
Yes, I did. How I really wanted to major in music. And everybody who'd written a letter for me talked about my musical ability.
Right.
Is that not exciting?
It's very exciting.
I could just tell you a jillion stories like that.
Well, I want to tell you this one. I want you to share this one, because this is the one that I have shared many times outside of your knowledge, but I share it because it inspires me. and I use it to inspire young people. But when you found out, like that this was well, I got to tell you, OU was the best thing that happened at OU was you met Richard.
Well, no, I met him in high school. We were
You
high
took-
school sweethearts.
I thought
in
it was-
in Waukomis.
Really, I need to get him out here. I thought it was at OU, so he met you. You all went to the same college.
High school in Waukomis.
But did he go to OU also?
Yes, he went to OU on a basketball scholarship.
Who went to OU first? No.
We both did because we're the same age.
Okay. Well, I was gonna find out if you were chasing him, and you told me it was about a piano.
Well, I kind of did because I moved from Oklahoma College for Women to OU primarily because he was there.
Right. Okay. See, now see, I knew Richard had the magic touch. I knew he did. Anyway, but what happened to get you? You tried, and I don't want to get into the long story, but Richard kind of pulled you away into kind of a business training.
He shoved me into selling real estate. That's
Right.
what he did. By taking me to a class that he said he just wanted me there with him. He was lying through his teeth.
But he knew he can get you there. He got you to OU.
He knew that he had to get me to the class so I could get into real estate because you have to be licensed.
Right. Right. So you got into
And
the
I'm
class.
so grateful he did.
Yeah. This is the story I want to get to. You get the license, you stop teaching, you're doing real estate. And you're not doing so well, Mo. You're not doing so well. And I want you to tell this story about Lily Mae Tillman.
Okay,
Can you do that?
I can do it. I'll try to do it fast.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's hard to do it fast. I began real estate in January of 1974. I had no training to speak of. And I was the most miserable human being on the face of the earth. I cried every night because I couldn't get anything going. I didn't have any listings, I didn't have any buyers. I finally got one listing. And the months and the days went by, and on August the 1st, I prayed, and when I prayed to the Lord, I'm pretty blunt. And I said, I'm miserable. This can't be your will for me to be in real estate because I am so miserable. And I put my hands on my hip and I said, so here's the deal. Isn't that awful? It's a wonder he didn't strike me with lightning. Well, he did later.
That's a whole nother story.
That's another story. But I said, I remember Gideon, and I know what you did for him when he put out it's called a fleece. So here's the deal, God. I want 3 valid closings in the month of August, or I am out of here. I'm going to go back to UCO, get my master's degree, and go back into teaching, which I love.
Now this is where I want to put a mark right here. I want everybody to. This is, or else. I am not doing real estate again if this does not happen. No Keller Williams, no CEO, no Dream House.
Well, I'd never heard of Keller Williams,
Right,
and
but
the
none of this
idea
happens.
being a CEO
None of this happens.
was not even in my ability to think about.
If you quit, this.
That's what would have happened.
Okay, go ahead.
So, oh me of little faith, the next day I go to UCO and I enroll in graduate school because I'm going to get back into teaching. And the 29th day of August came, and I got a phone call from an agent who wanted to show the only listing I had, and they bought it. And this sparked inside my soul and my heart a snippet of hope. Because I didn't want to fail. I hadn't ever failed at anything that I'd really set out to do, and I didn't want that to be the first time. But I was so miserable, I was committed to go back into teaching. So on this the 30th day of August, I had some people referred to me. I sold them a house by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And now the flame inside me is pretty
Now
tall.
you're fired up, yeah.
And I'm fired up, and I think, oh my goodness, 2. You know, what miracle will happen tomorrow? Because tomorrow is the last day of August. And I woke up on the 31st day of August, and I had no buyers, I had no listings. And by 10 o'clock, I was mad at God. So I did what some women do when they're frustrated. I vacuumed.
You got to cleaning.
I got
Cree,
to
do you hear
cleaning.
that? You're not the only one that cleans when you get mad.
And I said, I am so furious with you, Lord, because it's like you're teasing me. You've given me 2 valid deals that I really believe will close. And you're teasing me. Why did you give me 2? Why didn't you give me none or 1? Mm-hmm. I don't like that.
Right, right.
Because it feels close and yet it's not. Mm-hmm. So I vacuumed some more, and at 10 o'clock my phone rang. And it was some people needing a home. I took them to a home, and the magic happened. I knew
Number 3.
immediately they were going to buy that home because they were moving their furniture and they had picked the bedrooms for the kids and all of that. But we go outside for them to get in their car so we can go write up the offer. And Mr. Buyer takes his wife over there in the corner of the yard, and they're talking. And while they're talking, my stomach is churning because I sense there's something wrong. And they come back and say, Mo, we want to buy this house, but we can't buy it through you. Well, I knew they should because I'm the one who showed it to them. Mm-hmm. And I said, why can't you? And they said, because we've been working with a beautiful woman named Lily Mae Tillman. And for 2 weeks, she's driven us around, shown us property, bought us breakfast, purchased lunch. Our kids spilled ice cream in the back of her car, and we just can't treat her this way. And they drove away, and I knew legally, according to the rules, I could challenge her.
Right.
But I am not about to beg anybody to buy a house through me.
Right.
I want them to want to buy a house through me. So they left, and I went home, and Wayland, I cried and cried and cried because I had come so close.
Yeah.
At 7 p.m., my phone rang, and it was Mr. Buyer, and he said, we've talked to Lily Mae Tillman, and she told us to do the right thing and buy the house from you.
Right.
So by midnight, I had the deal signed, sealed, delivered, and accepted.
And now you kept your word. You're staying in real estate.
I'm staying in real estate, and I want you to know that over the next 6 months, I sold 35 houses.
Yeah. This is it.
I cleaned up my stinking thinking in my head, and I established the right kind of mindset. And just praise the Lord for Lily Mae Tillman, because you see, I learned the greatest lesson of my business life because of her. I learned that when you do the right thing, you change the course of a person's life. My life had been changed because I was getting out of real estate.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that yet you did a lot of the right things, but if everybody doesn't do the right thing, right, it's always somebody else that comes into the picture that changes the trajectory of your life. And nobody made it on their own.
Nobody
Nobody
succeeds alone. Nobody.
Right. And so I've shared that story with kids all over because I call that what many people refer to as the butterfly effect. It's basically saying that, and you did this for us, for my family, right? You can, a butterfly on the other side of the world is flapping its wings, moving molecules of air that is causing a tidal wave on the other side of the world, that is changing things on the other side of the world. It's just moving. And so Lily Mae Tillman flapped her little wings toward Mo. And Mo, life was changed by it, that went the snowballs into basically where we're sitting today, right? And the story and the books and the story is being told and the legacy is being built, not just because of Mo's hard work and ethic, not just because of Mo's sharecropping parents and all of those principles, but because she did the right thing.
And just think, in everybody's community, if people would do the right thing, we literally could change our community or the world. It is just amazing how God works in that area.
Yeah, you got to do the right thing. I love that. Now, which I've got to ask you too about the philosophy of because you do some mentoring, which I love, by the way. I kind of stalk you, and you do the online mentoring community thing, and so your people are able to call in and ask advice, and you give them Mo Anderson principles. And one of those, and there's many, right? There's many, and I couldn't settle on which one I wanted to ask you about. But the one I wanted to ask you about is win, or no deal. Talk about that.
Win-win or no deal means in real estate that however the transaction comes down, it's got to be good for the buyer and it's got to be good for the seller. Win-win in a family is if you're having difficulty coming to an agreement with a teenager, you have to sit down and negotiate what the rules are going to be. And it's got to be win-win for the teenager and win-win for the parent. And see, when the parent works on a win-win basis, where it's something about it is great for the kid and something about it is great for the parents. Maybe they come in at 10 o'clock and the parent doesn't have to worry anymore, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's interesting because my dad, when I got to be a teenager and I wanted to stay out with my friends and all that kind of stuff, and I stayed out past what he thought was an acceptable time. And my mother was a different school of thought. She was like, it's win my way, you do it my way or else. And he kind of had this, maybe didn't have the terminology, this win-win. So he sits me down and he says, now, son, I got to tell you, the time you came in last night, I found that unacceptable. He says, but now I want to find out from you what you think an acceptable time is. And of course, I said, you didn't like 1 a.m.? You like 12? I don't really like 12. I don't really like 12. And so we kept going back and forth until we settled on a time that I agreed on and that he agreed on. And now that I look back at it, I probably wasn't going to get the time that I wanted, but I felt like I was a part of the process.
That's it. That's the key for win-win.
Right. And so now, if I were getting close to that time, it was not just about breaking a rule, it was about breaking my word.
That's right. And the only thing you really have in life is your word.
Is your word. That's it. So I keep that.
And see, for the teenager, it teaches them negotiating skills, and they really begin to understand win-win because they feel it and they experience it.
Right. I so much more I want to unpack there, but I want to move on to, you are a powerhouse businesswoman, not a businessman, businesswoman, coming up in a different time and excelling at a different time. Would you talk to the ladies watching and tell them about the challenges you dealt with being a CEO woman, how you overcome it, and how you deal with it even today with placing women in strong positions in business?
I have to tell you that I experienced so many positive things as a woman And I have so many friends who did not, and I've given a lot of thought. Why did I have a better experience than they did when I came from an era where you couldn't be anything but a school teacher, a nurse, or a secretary?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that question is my mother did something for me when I was in the 4th grade. I came home on the school bus one day and she said, I want you to join every committee you can in your school. And I thought that was so silly and crazy. I hardly really understood what a committee was. And she looked at me and she said, I believe God has given you some leadership abilities, and this would be a great way for you to be able to practice your leadership. So what did she do for me in that moment? She convinced me I had some leadership abilities, natural ones that God had given me. She said, if you'll be on every committee you can be on and try to be the chairman if you can, then when you're a senior in high school, in leadership, you'll be years ahead of the rest of the kids. So see,
So what I'm
so
feeling.
if I'm having a conflict with a man about something, I'm really strong.
Right. Right.
And I just absolutely debate at a high level until I get him to understand, because you need to really understand before you give your opinion.
Well, so here's the question though. I think that's the struggle with women in the workplace, is that they feel like they have to debate more to prove a point than a man has to. And you don't mind. You just don't mind doing
and
it.
I just don't mind doing it. I enjoy doing it.
Right.
I just smile and say, no, darling, that isn't acceptable. and with me being, see, I have loved my 60, 70, and 80 decades, because the older that you get, the more you can say and get by with it. So I just smile great big and I say, I'd like to debate that with you.
Right.
No, Waylon, that is not how it is.
Right. Do you find you have to coach a lot of women in this space? You have to coach a lot of women through this?
I try to teach them how to deal with conflict, because if they can learn how to deal with conflicting ideas, and you know how we are today in our culture. If you don't believe like me, I don't like you. Well, see, I'm not like that.
Right.
You're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and I just love you to death.
I wasn't going to share that.
Well, you can cut it out. Get them to cut it out. And I have, a little Democratic friend by the name of Krista Jones that I adore. We can talk about politics all day
long.
Because we don't get mad at each other. It's so childish to get mad at each other because someone disagrees with you. But see, I grew up as a child in an environment where my parents and their Democratic, well, my dad was a Democrat and my mother was Republican, and they just talked all the time with the opposite party and never got mad.
Right.
So I knew it was possible.
Right.
And now it's ridiculous.
Right. I got to go backwards because somebody asked this question
Okay.
about Lily Mae Tillman.
Oh,
they want to know.
yes.
They want to know if you ever met her and
Oh,
talked to her,
yes.
and how you were able to develop that relationship from there.
I knew who she was, but I was so new in the business, I hadn't met her. She worked for Century 21. She was an older woman, just little, petite, precious. She walked with a cane. So when this happened, I called her up and said, I want to come and see you. I took her flowers, roses, and I made her accept a referral fee from me.
Yeah.
That's generosity.
Generosity.
Because I didn't have to give it to her. But I knew how they loved her, how they appreciated her, and I wanted her to have a piece of the deal. Mm-hmm. Because when you share and you give and you care, I'm here to tell you, honey, your bread comes back buttered.
Amen to
The
that.
scripture even says so. What is it? Double spilling over, pressed. I
Down,
can't
yep,
quote
yep.
it, but my dad used to say that to me all the time.
Right, and it's working. And it's working.
Well, when you do the right thing and you follow spiritual laws, like tithing is a spiritual law. I don't care if you're a Hindu, a Buddhist, or an atheist, or a Christian. It applies to everybody. And I've tried to teach that to my 180,000 people. And the spiritual law of taking the high road.
Right.
All of these things help you have the correct mindset, and then you get along with people, you have influence with people.
Right.
Do you realize I have a platform of influence of 180,000 people? And I get to share all this stuff.
And so your voice, you have to be responsible with what you say. You have to be responsible with what you do.
Oh, yes.
You have
I'm very careful about
very,
that.
very careful about that. And I want to talk about, I really want to talk about how you push a particular type of culture on 180,000 people from right here in Oklahoma City or Texas, where you kind of do your business. And I know that's a long story, but we could use a big dose of hope culture right now, not just in Oklahoma, but in this country. And what would be your single advice to say, we need to get this hope down. We need to get this one thing down as a country, or to be neighborly. Would it be the giving part? Would it be the generosity part?
No, I believe if you want to build culture in a company, in a family, in a community, you have to have a core piece. Mm-hmm. You come together as a team. If you're doing young people, you get some of your elderly people like me, you get ages in between. And then you begin to ask questions. What do we want our community to be like? How do we do it? And if you mark all that stuff on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, you'll end up coming out with 5 or 6 core principles. For example, in our company, and I use our company one for our family, it's win-win or no deal. Integrity, do the right thing. Customers always come first. Commitment in all things. Creativity, ideas before results. This means you brainstorm your ideas before you go out and implement them, and then you pray and ask the Lord to be sure and put a black hatter in the group who can find everything wrong with your idea, because you're so positive you won't see it.
That's good stuff.
And then the next one is Y4C, 2 T's. 2 T's. The first T is trust, and it begins with honesty. Can you imagine what a neighborhood could become if that became their byline?
Trust.
Trust begins with honesty. See, I grew up in an era where we never locked a door, we never locked a car. Somebody came to rob our chicken house one time when I was 15, and I went out with an iron skillet.
But
I got on them.
You know what you said though about the trust thing is, you said it very early in our conversation, is that make sure needs are being met first.
Right.
And so in the community, like I see where we see the most crime, we often find the most need.
That's exactly right. And I tell everybody I speak to, if in every church, every business, every civic club, every entity in the country, if they had a philanthropic model like we do, there would be no need for welfare. Now, if every church had breakfast on the avenue for those who are hungry, and then the women's groups in the church began to identify what the needs were in those 100 families, and if it's too big for that church, get 4 or 5 church. See, and then they
I'm
could
tracking.
take it a step further. They could teach the women, if they want a job, you know, help them get some education on whatever it is they want to do. They can get people to donate new clothes and have a new clothes closet just for the women who want to go interview, and then bring someone like me in and I'll teach them how to interview. Do you see how far this could go if every church had a philanthropic model? Too many churches are too busy building huge, great big buildings, and they need to just build a big building and then get with it in their community. There's a guy who did all this mission work in another country, and I said, Jim, quit that. You've got so many people around you who need Jesus and who need help and who need Christian love. Would you quit going to that country and start ministering to those around you? Because Scripture teaches us we take care of our own first, then we reach out to our community. And what better way to do it than through a church? But no, we're busy raising money for the next project instead of ministering to the people in our community.
Right. I have a handful of ministers that I work with through work and in the community that you would just love to sit down and talk to, that are outside of the sanctuary as often as possible. I mean, you just go crazy. I've got 2 more questions I want to ask you. One is, I struggle. This is me. You're not talking to the rest of them.
Okay.
Mo, I have struggled with work-life balance. And I have not built a following of 180,000 people, and I still struggle with when to be home, when to be with my kids. I think I'm doing a much better job as a grandparent than I did as a mom.
Oh yeah,
as a
we
dad,
all do. We
as a dad.
practice on our kids.
But would you tell,
Then we're good.
give me some advice
The
on
key
creating
to
one.
having a life by design. Did you hear
Life by
that?
design.
Life by design. And to have what everybody calls workplace balance is a skill called time blocking. And it's very simple how it works.
You said simple, you didn't say easy.
It's easy.
Okay.
It's simple and easy.
And easy, okay.
In October or November of every year, you get your book. I do it on the computer, but a lot of people love to do it in a calendar book. And you block in everything on that calendar that you want to do for your family. You'd block in your Sundays because you want to take them to church. You block in the Wednesday nights or whatever it is you do. And then you block in everybody's birthday because that is a special day. And you're going to take a day of vacation to be home with your wife. She blocks out a day of vacation if she works. It's on your calendar in October or November for the next year. You may want to go to the school and have lunch with your grandchild. You might want to do it once a quarter, once a week, whatever.
Put it in early.
You put it in early.
And they're non-negotiables.
They are non-negotiables. They are sacred dates. And when your family sees that you are committed to be with them on these certain occasions, let's say you want to take your son and grandson fishing, goes on the calendar. But you do that time blocking and that planning October, November, and December. So when January 1 hits, you have your first vacation in there with whoever's going to go with you, and maybe you break your 2 weeks up into 2 or 3 little trips. You know,
Yeah.
however you do it.
That's good.
That's the key.
And you figure this out with your grandkids and not with your kids. So there's hope.
There's hope. and then for years we've had grandkids dinners. So see, I'm teaching a lot of this to them.
Right, right. Well, I got to tell you, there's so much more. We're probably wearing out our friends on Facebook right now, but there's a story you told, and I never told you that the impact of this story on one person. Hopefully, the little butterfly wings went to flying, but I'm gonna tell it to you, and the impact that it had. I'm sitting at a community event one day, and I'm just passing out pamphlets, kind of advertising and telling people about the work that we do in our program. And this lady, she came by and saw that we do mentoring, and she read the pamphlet, and she stood there, and she said, middle-aged black woman, and she said, "Y'all do mentoring?" I said, yes, ma'am. She said, "You mentor? How old the boys do you mentor?" And I told her the age, and she said, And she walked off. And 15, 20 minutes later, she came back, and she came back to this table again, and she was just standing there behind somebody else, and I said, "Ma'am, did you need another baggie or whatever?" She says, "No, I was just thinking I need some resources from my son." And I said, "How old is your son?" She said, "My son is 20 years old, 19, 20 years old." And I said, "Oh, yeah, he's too old for our program, all that kind of stuff. Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Tell me about your son." And she went to tell me about her son, and it was negative. It was negative. It was a challenge. She's a single mom. It was a challenge. And I don't know why this story popped up, Mo, but right at that moment, this story popped up. You were taking me, my wife, and a bunch of class out to see your place in Wacomas. We were on a charter bus, and you were at the front of the bus, and as we got started, I guess to break the monotony or whatever, you stood up and said, "Everybody tell about your favorite summer vacation," because we were headed into summer. And row by row, people started standing up and sharing their different summers that they remember as a kid and why they like this summer vacation. And we got done, and you turned around and sat down. And then somebody says, Mo, you got to tell your favorite summer vacation. And you go, "Oh, you want me to tell it?" "Yes." And you said, "Well, I take my grandkids, I promised them when they turn 16. You remember the story?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You said when they turn 16, I will take them anywhere in the world they want to go.
If it's safe.
If it's safe. If it's safe. You did highlight that. If it's safe. And everybody went. But this one turned 16, and he tells me that he wants to go on a safari in Africa somewhere. And I'm going, that's not safe. That's not safe. But I don't know. We looked into it, and sure enough, take him on the trip, and we're doing this safari every day of the trip. And just the day or so before we get ready to go, he tells me that he's seen every animal except for a cheetah. He hadn't seen a cheetah. And I tell him, "Yeah, you've seen a cheetah. We've seen everything. I'm not doing that anymore." He said, "Nope, we haven't seen cheetahs, Grandma."
That's right.
So you went to the guide, and you go to the guide, and you tell the guide, "My grandson hasn't seen cheetahs, do you know?" She says, "Yes, if we get up early in the morning, I know where some are. That we might get lucky and find them out there." So you guys get up, y'all get in the Jeep, you
Really
load up
early.
really early, really early. And you go out, and he stops the Jeep. And we told the story so good, he stops the Jeep. I can see it. And you can see, look up there, and there's these baby cubs, cheetah cubs, sitting up there on the hill. Little baby cubs. And it was so, and you watch, and then he said, "Shh, look over there. And the mama was kind of creeping in the brush. And across the field, across the way, was a gazelle. And out of nowhere.
Spotted it.
And she spotted it, and she had it in her crosshairs. And before you know it, boom, Mama cheetah takes off. Gazelle tries to take off, not near fast enough. And in a cloud of dust, boom, cheetah blows this gazelle up and has it in its grasp. And you go, it was the most amazing thing. Scary, powerful, but
She brings it over to her babies.
drags it.
Drags it to
She
her
drags it
babies.
across the thing to her babies. And just when you think it's over, the guy says, watch this. And across the other direction, here comes the hyena, making their way over to these cubs who are now playing around and kind of feasting on the gazelle that Mama dropped off for them, that she caught, captured, drug up there.
And she used it to teach them where to bite on the neck.
Yep.
Because when that baby reached up and did his thing on the neck of the gazelle, it went down like that.
Yes.
It was the most amazing thing.
Yep.
God is just amazing.
Amazing. So here's the thing about the story that I believe I wanted to capture for this mother is as those hyenas made their way up there, Mom was sitting over there watching these cubs, and the hyenas are not breaking stride. They're coming. They're coming. And the baby cubs are forced to decide if they're going to fight for this food or let it go. And they let it go. And you said to the guy, well, why didn't that mama
Fight more.
fight for that food for her babies? Why didn't she fight for her babies? And this is what he told you. He said she's completely worn out from the run to catch it and the dragging and the pulling that she did. She would be no match for the hyena. She knew it.
She
so
would
those
lose.
babies, yep, those babies were going to have to do it themselves or let it go. And so I told that mom that story. And the reason I tell her that story
I can't believe you remembered it so well.
Yes, the reason I tell her that story is because, Mama, I believe for 18 years you did the run, you did the drag, and you did the pull. And I can see that you're tired. And life is full of hyenas.
Oh, yes.
Life is full of hyenas. And I described how different hyenas. And I said, your son is now at the point where you're going to have to let him decide on whether or not he's going to eat or starve. Right? You're going to have to make a decision as a single mom that you've done all the catching of his food. If he's going to eat from this point, he's got to do the hunting himself.
That's
Right? If you would have seen the impact of that story and the application to her own life, she cried in that chair and she got up like she was on a mission. I don't know what happened, but I think some 20-year-old boy got put out the house that night. But so I want to thank you so much for sharing so many of your stories and so much of the wisdom. I want to thank you so much for sharing your home. And I also want to thank you for always giving to this community. Whatever you do, Mo, don't stop inspiring us with your giving. Thank you so much, sister.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Right.
Thank you so much.
What's next for
Waylon.
you? What are you going to be doing next? What's next? I know you're doing something.
A lot of business stuff, and I don't plan to retire. I just love what I do, and I'll just keep doing it.
Just keep doing it. So all of you people at 60, 70, and 80 years old that think that you're tired,
It's the best part of your life.
shut up. Stop it. Get to work. Get to work. That's it for Conversations with Cubit. I cannot wait to share with you our next exciting conversation. Remember, it's all about community. Y'all have a good night.